Dr. Sarah Mitchell leaned over the flickering screens of the observatory, her heart racing as she scrutinized the latest data. For months, the Hubble Space Telescope had been collecting images from the outer reaches of the solar system, and what had initially been routine astrophysical research had turned into something that felt otherworldly. Her research team, comprised of brilliant but underappreciated scientists, had stumbled upon something monumental, something hidden behind the sun. The walls of the observatory were lined with high-tech equipment and towering computers, their soft whirring sounds punctuated by the occasional clatter of keyboards. Outside, the night sky was obscured by clouds, but the telescope's infrared cameras had pierced through the veil, revealing an enormous object nestled in the sun's glare. The anomaly appeared as a colossal shadow, dark and imposing against the backdrop of the sun's brilliance. "Can you believe this?" Sarah called out, excitement lacing her voice. Her colleague, Dr. James Patel, squinted at the screens, adjusting his glasses as he leaned closer to get a better look. "It's incredible, but could it be an error?" he asked, his voice tinged with skepticism. "We've checked the data from every angle. This is real," she insisted, her fingers dancing across the keyboard as she pulled up the images from various angles. The object was enormous, at least 3 times the size of the largest known space station. Its surface was a chaotic collage of geometric patterns, shimmering faintly in the dark. "What the hell is it?" James whispered, half in awe, half in dread. Their supervisor, Dr. Thompson, ambled into the room, his expression shifting from casual curiosity to stark disbelief as he caught sight of the images. "Is this for real?" he asked, looking between Sarah and James, his voice low. "It's real," Sarah confirmed, her pulse quickening. "We're calling it Project Solaris." Dr. Thompson took a deep breath, his brow furrowing as he contemplated the implications. "We need to report this to the board immediately. If this is what we think it is, it could change everything." The following morning, a sense of unease hung in the air as the trio prepared for the board meeting. Sarah paced back and forth, rehearsing her presentation in her mind. The board members were notorious for their dismissive attitudes towards unconventional research. She needed them to see the importance of their findings, to understand the gravity of the situation. As they entered the sterile conference room, the tension was palpable. A long, polished table dominated the space, surrounded by serious-faced members, each with an air of authority. Sarah took a deep breath, projecting confidence as she presented the data. She explained their findings, showing the images of the colossal ship, a title she hadn't intended, but felt appropriate given the size and shape of the object. "This is not just an anomaly," she concluded, her voice rising with fervor. "It could be an extraterrestrial spacecraft, or at the very least, evidence of advanced technology beyond our understanding." Murmurs swept through the room, a mixture of disbelief and intrigue. One member, a seasoned astrophysicist named Dr. Ling, leaned forward, a skeptical look on her face. "You're suggesting that this is a spaceship? Behind the sun? The logistics alone? It's not just a ship, it's colossal. The patterns on its surface suggest a kind of technology we've never seen before. We have to investigate further," Sarah insisted. "We need to approach this cautiously," Dr. Thompson interjected. "We must conduct more research before making any drastic decisions." The board members exchanged glances, the tension thickening as they weighed their options. Finally, the chairperson, a stern woman with piercing eyes, spoke. "We will allocate resources for further study, but be advised, Dr. Mitchell, if this leads to nothing, there will be consequences." As they left the room, Sarah felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. This was just the beginning, and yet an unsettling thought nagged at the back of her mind. What if they uncovered something that was meant to remain hidden? In the following weeks, the atmosphere at the observatory shifted. Scientists pored over the data day and night, fueled by coffee and adrenaline. A deep sense of urgency pervaded their research as they attempted to understand the colossal ship. They initiated collaborations with engineers, physicists, and even military strategists, their scope expanding as they uncovered more about the mysterious object. As more data came in, it became evident that the ship was not just passive. It seemed to emit faint signals, radio waves that pulsed like a heartbeat. The patterns in the waves were intricate, resembling some form of communication. Sarah's excitement was tempered by a creeping anxiety. What was it trying to say? One evening, while analysing the signals, Sarah and James worked late into the night. The observatory was silent except for the rhythmic tapping of their keyboards. Suddenly, a sharp beep pierced the quiet, and Sarah's screen erupted with a cascade of strange symbols and diagrams. "Look at this," she exclaimed, leaning closer to the monitor. "It's almost like a language." James squinted at the screen, his brow furrowing. "It looks like mathematical equations, mixed with geometric shapes. If we can decode this, it could change everything." As they continued their analysis, an unsettling feeling crept into the back of Sarah's mind. The more they delved into the signals, the more they felt as if they were tapping into something far more profound and dangerous than they could have imagined. Weeks turned into months, and the investigation intensified. The board approved the launch of a small unmanned probe to gather more data. Named the Icarus, the probe was equipped with the latest technology to withstand extreme solar conditions and was designed to approach the ship carefully. On the day of the launch, a palpable tension hung in the air as the team gathered around the control room, watching the monitors with bated breath. The countdown echoed in the silence, each number reverberating like a heartbeat. 3, 2, 1, liftoff. Cheers erupted as the Icarus soared into the sky, piercing through the atmosphere. The monitors displayed its trajectory, a line of bright green that stretched towards the sun, where the colossal ship awaited. Days passed, filled with anxious anticipation. Each day, the scientists tracked the Icarus, monitoring its systems as it drew closer to the object. When it finally arrived, the first images streamed back, sending a jolt of excitement through the team. The ship's surface was even more complex than they had imagined, shimmering with colours that seemed to shift and change as the probe captured data. But amidst the awe, there were anomalies. The ship seemed to react to the probe, emitting pulses of energy that distorted the images. "Is it aware of us?" James whispered, the fear evident in his voice. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her mind racing with the implications. "But we need to analyze these signals. It's like it's trying to communicate." As the team delved deeper into the data, a chilling realization began to surface. The signals were not just mathematical constructs. They contained warnings, echoes of something profoundly ancient and terrifying. Sarah spent countless sleepless nights decoding the messages, each revelation sending chills down her spine. The ship was a remnant of an ancient civilization, a warning of what lay beyond their star system. They spoke of destruction, of an entity that had consumed worlds, leaving nothing but devastation in its wake. The warnings became clearer, more urgent, as if the ship itself was pleading for recognition. One night, Sarah gathered the team for an emergency meeting. She presented her findings, her hands shaking slightly as she spoke. "This is not just a ship. It's a guardian, or perhaps a sentinel. It was left here to warn us, to protect us from something we can't begin to comprehend." James's eyes widened in horror. "What is it warning us about?" "Something is coming," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart. "Something that could destroy everything we know." The days that followed were filled with frantic preparations. The board finally took the warning seriously. allocating resources to investigate further. They reached out to other research facilities, international space agencies, and even military branches. A sense of urgency permeated their every action as they realized the gravity of the situation. However, the more they sought answers, the more they felt watched. Surveillance drones monitored their every move, and whispers of discontent surfaced within the scientific community. Skepticism and fear bred paranoia, splintering the team into factions. One night, while Sarah was working late, she received a message from an anonymous source, a chilling warning to stop their research. The message detailed the history of the Colossal ship and the entity it guarded against, but the specifics were vague and unsettling. A cold sweat broke out on her skin as she read the words, "The truth is terrifying. Turn back before it's too late." The feeling of being observed intensified, and soon strange occurrences began to unfold. Equipment malfunctioned inexplicably, and shadows seemed to move in the corners of their vision. Each night, Sarah could sense an unseen presence lurking just beyond the edge of her perception. As they pushed forward, hoping to decode the remaining signals from the ship, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. People started to disappear, first minor technicians, then key members of the team. Panic set in, but the board remained adamant that they were close to a breakthrough. As the countdown to a crucial transmission from the ship drew near, the team felt a palpable shift in the air. The remaining scientists worked feverishly, frantically trying to make sense of the remaining signals. The clock ticked down to the moment they had been waiting for, but Sarah felt a gnawing dread in the pit of her stomach. When the moment arrived, they gathered around the main screen, their eyes glued to the data streaming in. The ship pulsed with energy, and a series of intricate symbols illuminated the screen. The air crackled with tension as the scientists frantically tried to interpret the message. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness as the power flickered and died. Panic erupted as they scrambled to restore order. The monitors flickered back to life, and the images displayed a terrifying sight. Dozens of massive shadowy forms looming behind the ship. "What are those?" James gasped, his face pale. "Something's coming," Sarah whispered, a chill creeping up her spine. "We need to get out of here." As they rushed to evacuate, the ground shook violently, sending them stumbling. The walls of the observatory trembled, and alarms blared, echoing the chaos unfolding around them. They were not just observers anymore. They had awakened something ancient, something malevolent. As Sarah, James, and the remaining members of their team raced down the narrow hallways of the observatory, the chaos intensified. The walls shook violently, and the sound of alarms echoed in their ears, blending with the low, ominous hum emanating from the monitors. "Where do we go?" James shouted, his voice barely audible over the cacophony. "Try the emergency exit," Sarah directed, her heart pounding. They stumbled into the stairwell, the dim emergency lights casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. Each step felt heavier as dread gripped them, amplifying their fear. What had they unleashed? As they reached the ground floor, they noticed that the usual bustling activity of the observatory had transformed into a frantic scramble. Scientists and technicians rushed past them, panic etched on their faces, while security personnel barked orders, attempting to restore order. "Get everyone to the safe zone," a frantic voice shouted. "We don't know what's happening." Sarah's heart sank. The urgency of the situation was more dire than they had anticipated. Glancing back at the monitors in the control room, she saw the colossal ship pulse rhythmically, as if it were a living entity, responding to their fear. The shadowy figures behind it seemed to shift, twisting and writhing in the gloom, almost as if they were alive. "Something is coming," she whispered to James, the weight of her words settling heavily in the air. "We need to find a way to communicate with the ship." As they fled through the building, they reached the main hall, where a group of scientists gathered, staring at the main screen, which displayed the ship's signal in real time. The once mesmerizing patterns now looked chaotic, frantically flashing symbols that sent an ominous chill through the air. "Sarah, James, look!" one of the scientists, Dr. Ahmed, called out, urgency coursing through his voice. "We've decoded part of the message. It's a warning about an entity, the devourer of worlds." "What does that mean?" James asked, dread pooling in his gut. "According to the ancient texts we found in the ship's signals, it's a creature that consumes entire planets," Ahmed explained, his eyes wide with fear. "The ship was sent as a sentinel to protect us from its approach." "Why is it coming now?" Sarah wondered aloud, panic threatening to overwhelm her. What triggered its return? Dr. Ahmed's hands trembled as he pointed at the screen. "The ship. It's responding to our presence. It's been dormant, but now it's active because of us." Just then, the lights flickered ominously, before plunging them back into darkness. The alarms blared louder, and the group was swallowed by a palpable fear. "Stay together," Sarah shouted, gripping James's arm as they moved toward the exit. They needed to reach the surface and find out if the rest of the world was aware of the impending doom. Emerging into the night, they were met with a scene of pandemonium. The sky was ablaze with flashes of light as emergency vehicles raced toward the observatory. People ran in all directions, their faces twisted in terror. "Get to the broadcast station," Sarah yelled over the chaos, urgency propelling her forward. "We need to warn everyone." They sprinted towards the nearby building, the sharp sounds of panic echoing around them. As they neared the station, Sarah spotted a news crew filming the turmoil. Cameras rolled as reporters struggled to make sense of the chaos unfolding in the sky above. "What are we going to say?" James asked, breathless. "Everything," Sarah replied, determination burning in her chest. "They need to know what we've discovered." Inside the broadcast station, the atmosphere was electric. News anchors were frantically trying to piece together the story, and as Sarah and her team burst in, the room fell silent, all eyes turning toward them. "Dr. Mitchell, what's happening?" a producer called out, scrambling to adjust the cameras. "We have vital information regarding the anomaly behind the sun," Sarah declared, the weight of the moment pushing her forward. "It's a colossal ship, and it's not just a vessel. It's a warning, a sentinel guarding us against a consuming entity known as the devourer of worlds. If we don't act now, we could face annihilation." The room erupted in chaos, reporters clamoring for details. The producer quickly directed the crew to set up a live broadcast, urgency crackling in the air. As the cameras rolled, Sarah spoke directly into the lens, her voice steady despite the tremors in her hands. "To everyone watching, we are in grave danger. The colossal ship we discovered behind the sun is actively warning us about an ancient entity that consumes worlds. We must prepare and unite to face this threat. This is not just a scientific anomaly. This is a matter of survival." The tension was palpable as the broadcast reached millions of viewers. Social media exploded with comments, some in disbelief, others in sheer terror. News outlets across the globe picked up the story, broadcasting images of the ship as the world began to wake up to the reality of the looming catastrophe. However, amidst the frantic chaos, a sense of dread loomed over Sarah. The signals from the ship had intensified, and with each passing hour, the atmosphere felt heavier, charged with an unspeakable fear. As the broadcast continued, the lights flickered ominously again. Suddenly, the screen behind Sarah began to show an image that sent chills down her spine, a swirling black mass forming in the depths of space, moving with an unnatural speed towards the solar system. The world watched in horror as the news anchors struggled to maintain composure, reporting the emergence of a colossal dark shape, an entity that defied the laws of nature. Its surface pulsed with an unsettling energy, resembling a living organism. and as it approached, it seemed to absorb the light around it. "Dr. Mitchell, what can you tell us about this entity?" the anchor asked, desperation lacing her voice. "It's difficult to quantify," Sarah replied, fear tinging her words. "But the signals indicate it's alive and it consumes energy. Planets, stars, anything it encounters. We have mere hours before it reaches us." "Is there anything we can do?" the anchor pressed. "The only thing we can do is prepare, evacuate the most vulnerable areas, and if possible, harness the ship's technology to defend ourselves. But I can't promise that it will work," Sarah said, the weight of the world resting heavily on her shoulders. The anchor's face paled as the reality set in. "We are receiving reports from around the globe of mass evacuations. Governments are mobilizing their resources, but there are those who refuse to believe." As the news spread, divisions began to form among the populace. Some viewed the discovery as a hoax, a scheme to incite panic, while others succumbed to despair, refusing to act. Sarah watched helplessly as fear turned to chaos on the streets. Back at the observatory, the scientists were working furiously to decode the remaining signals from the ship. The atmosphere was tense, filled with uncertainty and dread. Dr. Ahmed gathered the team, his voice trembling. "We need to determine if there's a way to use the ship against the entity. It was designed to protect us." The team dove back into their research, but the pressure weighed heavily on them. Sarah felt the strain of leadership, every decision she made leading them closer to an uncertain fate. Weeks turned into a blur of sleepless nights, frantic data analysis, and hushed discussions of potential strategies. Just when they began to feel they were making progress, the entity moved closer, its presence palpable, like a shadow creeping into their lives. On one particularly dark night, the atmosphere shifted, thick with tension. The signals from the ship intensified, forming a chaotic symphony that reverberated through the observatory. A growing sense of dread enveloped the team as they struggled to make sense of the frantic messages. "Something's wrong," James said, staring at the screen, his face pale. "It's as if the ship is warning us. It's trying to communicate something urgent." "What could it be?" Sarah replied, a knot tightening in her stomach. As they delved deeper into the signals, an unsettling realization dawned upon them. The signals were not merely warnings, they were cries for help. The ship had been a prisoner of the entity, caught in a cycle of fear and desperation. It was an artifact of a long-lost civilization, doomed to warn others of the impending doom. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. It's like we've been awakened something that was meant to remain asleep. The ship is a beacon, drawing the entity closer to us. With horror etched on her face, she turned to the team. "We need to stop the broadcast. The more attention we draw, the closer it will come." As the team scrambled to shut down the broadcast, chaos erupted outside. The world was in a frenzy, people panicking as they attempted to flee from the impending doom. Governments were declaring states of emergency, but fear and confusion reigned, overshadowing rational thought. "Look!" Dr. Ahmed shouted, pointing at the screen. "It's here!" The entity had entered the solar system, a dark mass blotting out stars as it moved toward Earth with an impossible speed. Sarah's heart raced as she watched, the truth settling heavily on her shoulders. "We have to harness the ship's technology and find a way to redirect it," she yelled, her voice filled with urgency. "If it was meant to protect us, we must use it." The team rallied, working tirelessly to implement the plans they had drawn up in the weeks prior. They had analysed the energy emissions from the ship and theorised a way to create a barrier, a protective field to divert the entity's path. As they worked, the observatory trembled once more, the ground shaking violently as the entity approached. Monitors flickered erratically, and alarms blared, amplifying the sense of chaos. Outside, the sky darkened, the atmosphere charged with an ominous energy. With the clock ticking down, Sarah and her team initiated the final sequence to activate the ship's technology. They gathered around the main console, fingers flying over the controls as they prepared for the imminent confrontation. "Activate the signal," Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the dread coursing through her. "We need to establish contact with the ship and channel its energy." As the monitors displayed the ship's intricate patterns pulsating with energy, a deep, rumbling sound reverberated through the observatory. The entity loomed closer, its shape shifting and writhing, a manifestation of pure darkness. With a deafening roar, the systems powered up, and a brilliant beam of energy erupted from the ship, illuminating the night sky. The energy coalesced into a shimmering barrier, a protective dome encasing the observatory. For a moment, silence enveloped the group as they watched the beam reach out towards the approaching entity. The air crackled with tension, the world holding its breath. But as the barrier clashed with the entity, an agonizing scream pierced the atmosphere, a sound that echoed through the souls of every listener. The entity recoiled, twisting in response, and the ground shook with a fury that threatened to swallow them whole. Outside, the world erupted in chaos as people gazed up at the swirling darkness, their faces etched with terror. Sarah watched as the protective barrier held firm against the entity's advance, the ship pulsating with a light that illuminated the darkness. "We're doing it!" James shouted, adrenaline coursing through his veins. But just as victory seemed within reach, a tremor shook the ground violently, and the screens displayed alarming readings. The entity fought back, unleashing waves of dark energy that battered against the barrier. "It's too strong!" Dr. Ahmed shouted, panic rising in his voice. "We can't hold it!" In that moment of desperation, Sarah recalled the cryptic messages they had deciphered from the ship's signals. "It's not just about protection," she urged. "We need to redirect its energy. We have to give it a target to focus on." The team scrambled, recalibrating the systems as Sarah fought to maintain her composure. With a deep breath, she focused on the monitors, her mind racing. "Let's channel the energy toward the ship. We can create a feedback loop that will force the entity to retreat." As they initiated the plan, the monitors glowed with intensity. The ship, responding to their commands, the energy surged, and the protective barrier expanded, becoming a vibrant shield against the entity's onslaught. "Now," Sarah shouted, her heart pounding as she pressed the final command. The beam of energy redirected toward the ship, creating a blinding flash that engulfed the observatory. The world outside seemed to stop as the dark entity writhed in response. For a moment, silence enveloped everything, the air thick with anticipation. Then, with an ear-splitting roar, the entity recoiled, retreating from the barrage of light. "It's working!" James yelled, tears of relief streaming down his face as the entity began to dissolve into the void, its form disintegrating into shadows. But just as they thought they had won, the ship emitted a final resonating pulse, a sound that echoed like a death knell. The ground shook violently, and a shockwave radiated outwards, sending them crashing to the floor. When Sarah regained consciousness, she found herself lying on the floor of the observatory, the dim emergency lights flickering overhead. Her team lay scattered around her, groans filling the air. The monitors displayed static, the ship's signals gone silent. "Is it over?" James asked weakly, pushing himself up. I think so," Sarah replied, her voice hoarse. She looked around at the destruction. The control room lay in ruins, remnants of shattered equipment strewn across the floor. But as they gathered their bearings, a sense of dread settled in. The oppressive silence felt wrong, a haunting reminder of what had transpired. They had fought against an ancient entity, but at what cost? As they made their way outside, the world lay in chaos. News crews reported the aftermath, people wandering in a daze as they tried to comprehend the events that had unfolded. But as Sarah looked up at the sky, a deep sense of foreboding washed over her. The darkness that had threatened them lingered still, an ominous reminder of the thin veil that separated them from the unknown. In the weeks that followed, the world slowly began to recover. Governments scrambled to investigate the events surrounding the ship and the entity. But despite their efforts, the truth remained elusive. The colossal ship vanished without a trace, its protective barrier leaving only silence in its wake. Sarah returned to the observatory, haunted by the memories of what had transpired. She gathered her team, determined to continue their research, driven by the belief that they needed to understand what had happened. But as they resumed their work, unease settled in. The signals they had once captured were gone, leaving only fragments of data that felt incomplete. They had faced a great terror, yet unanswered questions lingered. "What if it comes back?" James asked one night, staring out into the darkness. "What if we weren't its only target?" The words sent chills down Sarah's spine. The entity may have retreated, but the feeling of dread never truly dissipated. The world was forever changed, and the shadows of what they had encountered loomed large over them. In the months that followed, Sarah and her team dedicated themselves to unraveling the mysteries of the cosmos. They worked tirelessly, seeking answers not only about the colossal ship, but about the entity that had nearly consumed them. As they dove deeper into their research, they encountered whispers of other anomalies, strange objects and signals from beyond that suggested they were not alone in the universe. Each discovery stirred both excitement and trepidation, the universe a tapestry woven with secrets waiting to be unveiled. Then, one fateful night, as Sarah reviewed the data, a familiar pattern appeared on her screen, a rhythmic pulse that mirrored the ship's signals. Her heart raced as she realized they had stumbled upon something monumental. "James," she shouted, calling her colleague over, "look at this." As he leaned closer, their eyes widened in shock. The signals were not just echoes. They were an invitation. A call from the unknown, a chance to unravel the very fabric of the cosmos. "Do we dare?" he asked, uncertainty lacing his voice. Sarah took a deep breath, the weight of their past pressing on her shoulders. "We must. We have to know what lies beyond." With renewed determination, the team set to work, ready to face whatever awaited them. The shadows of the past may linger, but their resolve burned brighter. They would venture forth, united in the quest for knowledge, ready to confront the terrors that awaited them among the stars. As weeks turned into months, Sarah's team became obsessed with the signals they had discovered. The rhythmic pulses echoed in their minds, a haunting melody that drew them deeper into the cosmos. They analyzed every aspect, deciphering patterns and attempting to establish communication. Each day brought them closer to understanding, but also to an inescapable truth. The universe was teeming with mysteries, and some were better left undisturbed. They began to sense a growing unease among their colleagues, whispers of caution echoing in the hallways of the observatory. One evening, as Sarah and James worked late into the night, the lights flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows on the walls. An electric charge hung in the air, and the monitors suddenly displayed a series of symbols that sent a chill down their spines. "What is this?" James whispered, leaning closer to the screen. "It's a response," Sarah said, her heart racing. "It's almost like an invitation." The symbols morphed into images, revealing an otherworldly landscape filled with strange creatures and colossal structures that seemed to defy logic. The beauty was both captivating and terrifying, a world that felt alive. "What are we looking at?" James breathed, awestruck. "I think it's a depiction of their civilization," Sarah replied, her mind racing with possibilities. "They're reaching out to us, showing us their world." As the days passed, the team found themselves at a crossroads. The signals continued to pulse with urgency, drawing them deeper into the enigma. They knew they were standing on the brink of something monumental, a chance to connect with an ancient civilization that had faced similar horrors. But with each discovery came the weight of responsibility. The knowledge they possessed could change the course of humanity, for better or for worse. They debated the implications of their findings, the ethical dilemma of exploring the unknown versus protecting their own world. "We can't ignore this," Sarah insisted during one of their meetings. "The signals are a beacon of hope, a chance to learn from others who face the darkness." "But at what cost?" Dr. Ahmed countered, concern etched on his face. "We don't know what we're inviting into our lives. What if we awaken something worse?" The room fell silent as they grappled with the gravity of their situation. The shadows of the past loomed large, a constant reminder of the entity they had barely escaped. In the end, the team made a unanimous decision. They would reach out to the civilization, but with caution. They would prepare, harnessing the technology from the Colossal ship, ensuring they were ready for whatever awaited them. With meticulous care, they prepared a transmission that would convey their intent to communicate, peaceful and respectful. They harnessed the ship's energy, creating a beam that would reach across the cosmos, bridging the gap between worlds. As they initiated the transmission, the air crackled with energy, a shimmering beam shooting into the void. The symbols on the monitors shifted, transforming into a vivid representation of their message, a plea for connection, for understanding. The team watched, hearts pounding, as they awaited a response. Seconds turned into minutes, the silence stretching out like an eternity. Just when despair began to settle in, the screens erupted to life with pulsating colors, a response echoing back to them. The images danced across the screens, revealing a civilization filled with life. Structures of unimaginable beauty towered against a swirling sky, teeming with vibrant colors and strange beings. The signals intensified, drawing them into a mesmerizing dance of light and sound. But as the excitement surged, a shadow crept into Sarah's mind. "What if they're not as benevolent as they seem?" she whispered, doubt creeping in. The team rallied around her, fueled by both hope and fear. They knew the risks, but the allure of discovery was too great. The decision had been made, they would continue to reach out. Then, just as they began to feel a sense of connection, the atmosphere shifted once more. A cold wind swept through the observatory, extinguishing the lights. The monitors flickered, and the once vibrant images turned dark and twisted. "What's happening?" James shouted, scrambling to regain control of the systems. "Something's wrong," Sarah yelled, panic rising in her chest. "We need to stabilize the transmission." But before they could react, a chilling voice echoed through the observatory, a deep, resonating sound that filled the air with dread. "You have awakened us." The room plunged into darkness, and the monitors displayed images of the entity they had fought against, now revealed in its full, horrifying form. It was no longer a mere shadow. It had become a colossal being of darkness, its presence suffocating and malevolent. "You foolish beings," it boomed. "You have drawn my attention once more. You cannot escape your fate." The team stumbled backward, terror etched on their faces as the entity's voice reverberated through their minds. Panic surged as they realized they had not awakened a benevolent civilization, but rather had called forth a being that thrived on fear and despair. "Shut it down," Sarah yelled, her voice filled with desperation. They scrambled to sever the connection, but the systems were locked, trapped in the entity's grip. "No!" Dr. Ahmed shouted, trying to override the controls. "It's too late." The monitors flickered, displaying images of destruction, worlds consumed, civilizations obliterated. The realization struck Sarah like a bolt of lightning. They had become part of a cycle, a cosmic game that pitted them against an ancient force. As the entity's power intensified, the observatory began to tremble violently. Shadows coiled around them, suffocating the air and plunging them into despair. "Hold on," James shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. "We can't give in." In a moment of clarity, Sarah remembered the ship, the very technology that had once protected them. "We need to harness its energy again, use it to fight back." With trembling hands, the team fought against the dark currents that threatened to engulf them. They initiated the systems, channeling the ship's energy into a defensive barrier. As the shimmering shield rose around them, a pulse of light erupted, illuminating the darkness. The entity recoiled, its form twisting in fury as it confronted the barrier. Sarah felt a surge of hope. But the battle was far from over. They needed to redirect the energy, channeling it back at the entity to weaken its grip. "Focus!" Sarah shouted, guiding the team as they adjusted the controls. The monitors displayed the entity's twisted visage, rage emanating from its core. As they unleashed the energy, a blinding beam shot forth, striking the entity with overwhelming force. It howled in rage, a sound that sent chills down their spines, but the barrier held firm, flickering with resilience. "You cannot defeat me," it roared, but its voice trembled as the light intensified, pushing it back. The energy surged, a wave of pure force that threatened to consume the darkness. In a final, cataclysmic moment, the barrier erupted, consuming the entity in a brilliant flash of light. The observatory trembled as the air crackled with energy, the force sending them sprawling to the ground. As the dust settled, silence enveloped the room, the once ominous presence vanquished. They lay on the floor, breathless and trembling, unsure of what had just transpired. We did it," James stammered, disbelief etched on his face. "I think so," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "But at what cost?" They emerged into the world, finding it eerily quiet. The darkness had lifted, but the aftermath of their battle hung heavily in the air. They had fought against an ancient entity, but the scars of that encounter would linger forever. In the weeks that followed, the world began to heal. News reports spoke of the mysterious phenomenon, the colossal ship, and the entity that had threatened their existence. Scientists and researchers delved into the aftermath, piecing together the remnants of their battle. But for Sarah and her team, the journey had only just begun. They were forever changed by their experiences, haunted by the shadows of the past, yet determined to learn from their mistakes. As they gathered in the observatory once more, the monitors flickered to life, displaying new signals from the depths of the cosmos. The allure of discovery tugged at their hearts, an invitation to explore the mysteries that awaited them. "We can't ignore it," Sarah said, her voice steady, "but we must tread carefully. We have seen the darkness, and we must be prepared." With renewed resolve, they set to work, united in their quest for knowledge. The universe held both terror and wonder, and they were determined to navigate its complexities. They would honor the past while forging a new path, one illuminated by the lessons learned in the face of darkness. As dawn broke over the observatory, the sky was painted with hues of gold and blue. The team stood together, gazing at the horizon, the weight of their past lifting just slightly. They had faced unimaginable horrors, but they had emerged stronger. "Whatever lies ahead, we face it together," Sarah declared, her heart filled with hope. With a final glance at the cosmos, they turned back to their work. The future was uncertain, but the journey was theirs to embrace. They would continue to explore, to seek answers and to confront the darkness that lurked beyond the stars. And as they looked to the sky, they knew they would never forget the shadows they had faced, nor the light they had fought to protect. Months passed, and life at the observatory returned to a semblance of normalcy. Sarah and her team had been hailed as heroes, their story broadcast across the globe, but the scars of their encounter lingered in their minds. Late one evening, as Sarah sifted through data and analyses, a familiar pattern emerged on the screen, one that sent chills down her spine. It was a rhythmic pulse, echoing the signals they had previously encountered. "No, it can't be," she whispered, her heart racing. "Sarah, what's wrong?" James called, sensing her distress. "It's the signals from the ship," she replied, panic rising in her voice. "They're back." "Are you sure?" he asked, his brows furrowing. She nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "We need to analyze this immediately." As they delved deeper into the signals, a sense of foreboding washed over the team. The rhythmic pulses grew stronger, resonating through the observatory like a heartbeat. But this time, it felt different, more sinister. "Look at this," Dr. Ahmed said, pointing to a series of symbols that danced across the screen. "They're not just signals, they're a message." "What does it say?" Sarah asked, leaning closer. "It's a warning," he replied, his voice trembling. "They're warning us of an impending threat. Something is coming." The air in the room turned electric, a tension settling among them as the weight of their past loomed over their heads. They had faced darkness before, but now it seemed to be creeping back into their lives. As days turned into weeks, the signals intensified, pulsing with urgency. The team worked tirelessly, analysing every aspect of the transmissions, trying to piece together the message they carried. "It's clear we're not alone," Sarah declared during one of their meetings. "The signals indicate a presence, something ancient and powerful." "But what does it want?" James asked, his voice filled with concern. "What if it's drawn to us again?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted, her mind racing with possibilities. "But we must prepare ourselves. We can't let fear guide us. We need to confront whatever is coming." They doubled their efforts, reaching out to other observatories and scientific communities, seeking allies to prepare for the impending storm. But as they spread the word, a sense of dread settled in the pit of Sarah's stomach. The day finally arrived when they received confirmation of a celestial event, a convergence of cosmic forces that would amplify the signals they had been monitoring. Scientists around the world were on high alert, and the observatory braced for what was to come. As the convergence approached, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. The team gathered around the monitors, eyes fixed on the screens as the signals reached a crescendo. "It's now or never," Sarah said, steeling herself for the unknown. Suddenly, the monitors erupted with chaotic energy, displaying a swirling mass of light and darkness. The images shifted, revealing the familiar shape of the colossal ship they had encountered months before, now re-emerging from the void. "What's happening?" James shouted as the monitors flickered and crackled with energy. "It's like it's awakening," Dr. Ahmed gasped, his eyes wide with fear. The ship pulsed with energy, its presence dominating the screens. But this time, it felt different, darker, more menacing. The entity they had thought vanquished seemed to have returned, stronger and more resolute. "They're not just signals anymore," Sarah murmured, fear creeping into her voice. "They're a call for us to respond, a challenge." As the lights in the observatory flickered, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The walls reverberated with the pulse of energy that surged from the monitors, echoing in their hearts. With every pulse, a chill ran down Sarah's spine. The echoes of the past were coming back to haunt them, and the stakes were higher than ever. They had faced the darkness once, but now it was poised to consume them anew. "We need to act," James urged, urgency in his tone. "If the entity has returned, we must confront it before it overwhelms us." Sarah nodded, her determination rising. "We'll use the ship's technology to defend ourselves again. We need to find a way to harness its energy and turn it against the darkness." As the team worked tirelessly, fear mingled with hope. They had learned from their past mistakes. This time they would be ready. With the convergence nearing its peak, the observatory buzzed with frenetic energy. The monitors displayed frantic readings as they established a connection with the ship. "Here we go," Sarah shouted, her heart racing. "We can do this!" As they initiated the process, the air crackled with energy, illuminating the room with an ethereal glow. The ship responded, its energy flowing through the systems, pulsating with life. But as they prepared to activate the defensive mechanism, an overwhelming force slammed against the observatory, throwing them to the ground. "No!" Sarah screamed, struggling to regain her footing. "We have to finish this!" The entity's dark form loomed over them, its presence suffocating. The monitors displayed its colossal shape, swirling and writhing as it prepared to strike. "Hold strong," James shouted, rallying the team. "We can't back down." With renewed determination, Sarah and her team pushed forward. They channeled the ship's energy, sending a beam of light into the darkness, aiming to reclaim their future. As the beams clashed, an explosion of light erupted, engulfing the observatory in a brilliant flash. The entity howled in fury, but the team stood resolute, their bonds of friendship and trust unbreakable. In that moment, Sarah felt a surge of power course through her veins. They were not alone. The energy of their shared experience fueled their resolve. The light surged, pushing back against the darkness, illuminating the path forward. "Together," Sarah yelled, their voices rising in unison, "we will not be consumed." As the light intensified, the entity recoiled, its form beginning to fracture. The team unleashed everything they had, channeling the ship's energy into a final blinding beam of light. With one final pulse, the darkness shattered, dissipating into the void. Silence enveloped the observatory as they fell to their knees, breathless but alive. As the sun rose over the horizon, the world began to heal once more. The team emerged from the observatory, the weight of their battle lifting as they breathed in the fresh air. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but the scars would remain. In the days that followed, Sarah and her team were hailed as heroes once again. But this time they knew the price of their victory. The entity may have been defeated, but the lessons learned would shape their future. With their newfound knowledge, they set their sights on the stars once more. The universe held untold secrets, and they were determined to uncover them. But they also understood the responsibility that came with exploration, an awareness of the darkness that lurked beyond. As they gathered around the monitors, a sense of anticipation filled the air. They had faced unimaginable horrors, yet their spirits remained unbroken. "Together we'll explore the unknown," Sarah declared, a glimmer of hope shining in her eyes. With a shared resolve, they embraced the journey ahead, knowing that the echoes of the past would guide them in their quest for knowledge. The universe awaited, and they were ready to confront whatever lay beyond the horizon. As they charted new paths in their research, Sarah and her team learned to embrace the unknown. They developed protocols to ensure their safety, balancing curiosity with caution. Each new signal was met with excitement tempered by respect for the mysteries that lay ahead. The world watched in awe as they continued to explore the cosmos, their discoveries sparking imaginations and inspiring generations to come. The shadows of the past remained, but they were now a part of their story, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. As Sarah gazed at the stars, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just explorers. They were guardians of knowledge, stewards of the cosmos. Years passed, and the observatory flourished as a center for scientific advancement. Sarah and her team mentored young scientists, sharing their experiences and instilling a sense of wonder in the next generation. They knew that the universe was vast and unpredictable, but they also understood the power of knowledge. Their encounters with darkness had taught them the importance of unity, resilience, and the pursuit of truth. And as they continued to explore the stars, they carried with them the legacy of their past, an unwavering belief that light would always prevail over darkness, and that the quest for understanding was a journey worth taking. One fateful night, as the team gathered around the monitors, a new signal emerged, an intricate pattern that shimmered with promise. The rhythmic pulse beckoned to them, a call from the stars. Sarah's heart raced as she recognized the familiar dance of energy. "It's an invitation," she whispered, her excitement palpable. "What do we do?" James asked, his eyes wide with anticipation. Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that this moment held the potential for discovery. "We respond," she declared. "We embrace the unknown once more." With a renewed sense of purpose, they prepared to reach out, ready to connect with whatever awaited them in the vast expanse of the cosmos. As the signal pulsed stronger, the observatory transformed into a hub of activity. The team worked tirelessly, channeling their energies into creating a transmission that would respond to the invitation. As the beam shot into the darkness, they felt a surge of anticipation. This was more than just a message. It was a chance to bridge the gap between worlds, to share knowledge and understanding. The monitors glowed with life as images filled the screens, depictions of distant galaxies, vibrant landscapes and beings of light. They were not alone. The universe was alive with possibilities. Then a reply came, a response that sent shockwaves through the observatory. The imagery coalesced into a form they recognized. The colossal ship that had once threatened their existence now transformed into a beacon of hope. "What is this?" Dr. Ahmed breathed, awe and disbelief etched on his face. "It's a message of peace," Sarah whispered, tears of joy brimming in her eyes. "They've come to show us the way." The room erupted in cheers as they realized the significance of this moment. The darkness they had once faced was no longer an enemy. It had become a guide, a catalyst for their growth. The ship descended, radiating a warm, inviting light. The team stood together, hand in hand, as they prepared to greet their newfound allies. They had traversed a tumultuous journey, but now they stood on the brink of a new era, one defined by cooperation and understanding. As they stepped forward, the light enveloped them, wrapping them in a sense of unity. In that moment, they knew they were no longer just explorers. They were ambassadors of hope, forging connections that spanned the cosmos. As they welcomed their new allies, Sarah felt a profound sense of purpose. The universe was vast and complex, but it was also filled with possibilities. Together, they would learn, grow, and face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their journey had come full circle, from darkness to light, from fear to hope. And as they stood beneath the stars, united in their quest for knowledge, they knew that the call of the cosmos would always guide them forward. Years later, the observatory had become a hub of interstellar collaboration, a testament to the bonds forged in the face of darkness. Sarah, now a leader in the field, continued to inspire others with her passion for discovery. The universe, once a source of fear, had transformed into a realm of wonder. Together with their allies, they explored new worlds, uncovering secrets that expanded their understanding of existence. And as they looked to the stars, they knew that their journey was far from over. The horizon stretched endlessly before them, filled with the promise of adventure and the possibility of connection. In the embrace of the cosmos, they found their true calling, to be explorers, protectors, and dreamers, forever reaching for the stars.